If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know that for a few years, I called the San Francisco Bay Area my home. This was the place that I seriously got into public transit, and the main catalyst for that was the BART system. This is a massive suburban railway with metro-like rolling stock, third rail power, underground stations in city centers, and a tunnel under a body of water, for which the system gets its name. If you'd like to learn more about BART, I have quite an extensive back catalog of videos about the trains I still hold close to my heart. But when I heard that the UK not only has something with all the same properties, but also isn't in London, I knew I had to head up to Liverpool and check it out. And I was pretty impressed. So today, let's talk about the trains that keep Liverpool ticking, and only the second most ridden yellow urban rail system in the Northwest, Merseyrail. One thing to keep in mind before we start is that Merseyrail is considered a mainline train operating company, not a metro system, and it runs on track that is managed by Network Rail. However, I do think it's useful and important to think of it as an urban rail system in the same ilk as Elizabeth Line and London Overground because of the role that it plays in the city that it's located in. Speaking of that, Liverpool City region is the 7th largest metro area in England, or combined authority as it's known, home to about 1.6 million people. It's defined by the River Mersey, a driver of the area's original industrial growth, and Liverpool itself was once home to the world's first elevated electric railway. Sadly, none of that remains or is in use today. In its place came much of the network that we now know as Merseyrail. This network was largely in response to the dreaded beaching acts of the early 60s, which forced many key routes and even some central stations to cease operation. The council hoped to retain service, but also saw it as an opportunity to come up with a new system. The lines originally terminated at the edge of the city, just as they do in London, but now they hope to stitch them together with new tunnels. The ultimate aim was an electrified and frequent rapid transit system, and a concept that's not too dissimilar to how German cities like Berlin and Munich pioneered the idea of the S-Bahn.
Fun fact, by the way.
The result of these plans was brand new underground stations in the city centre across two lines. The original Mersey Railway tunnel that ran under the river to Liverpool Central was reused, along with its pre-existing subsurface stations on the Birkenhead side. There's the Link Tunnel, no, not that Link Tunnel, which ran from Central to the lines up north, and the Loop Tunnel allowed trains from the Mersey Railway Tunnel to turn around and serve Lime Street, Liverpool's main intercity rail station. Today, these two tunnels form the Northern and Wirral lines respectively. A notable plan that never got built was a full orbital line using a now abandoned railway. Cost overruns meant that it was shelved, which is a real shame, as it would have connected many outer suburbs in the east. Part of the railway today is now a walking and cycling trail. I thought only the Americans did that. And finally, there's also the plan to use new and existing tunnels to link Central with Edge Hill, which would provide further connectivity with the Knowledge Quarter and the University of Liverpool. And we all know that universities can drive up ridership quite a lot. Go Bears! Here's what the service pattern looks like now. The Northern Line, not to be confused with this one, or this one, is entirely on the east side of the river. The key underground stations are Central and Moorfields, both of which connect to the Wirral line. The line starts to split into branches after the next station north, Sandhills, with branches to Southport, Ormskirk, and Headbolt Lane. Sandhills is the closest station to Everton's new stadium, though it is a 15-minute walk, and Kirkdale is where match-day shuttle buses run to Anfield, home of Liverpool. There's also regular local bus service to both stadiums, though much like some other UK cities, the bus network can appear a little fragmented sometimes. South of Central, the line continues to Hunts Cross via Liverpool South Parkway, both of which have connections to intercity services to places like Manchester, Birmingham, Norwich, Sheffield, and as of recently, Avanti trains to London now stop here.
So here are some top things to do at Liverpool South Parkway. You can get the Airlink bus to John Lennon Airport. You can see the flight departures even though you're not physically at the airport. You get your train tickets from a guy at a convenience store. And there's even a radio.
Only the services from Ormskirk continue beyond Central, with the other two terminating there. Each of the 3 Northern Line services runs every 15 minutes. Next is the Wirral line, which is a lot more interesting. This line uses the single-track loop that hits Moorfields, Lime Street, and Central in that order. The tracks reconnect at a rebuilt James Street station and continue under the river tunnel to Hamilton Square and Birkenhead. The longest branch goes out to Chester, very close to the Welsh border. The others go to Ellesmere Port, home to the National Waterways Museum, New Brighton, whose beach is decidedly less pebbly than actual Brighton's, and West Kirby, which is the branch that I spend the most time riding. Each branch runs at every 15 minutes, except Ellesmere Port, which is every 30. On the way to West Kirby, we pass by Bedeston, where you can connect with Transport for Wales trains over to Wrexham. The line does have level crossings, but only towards the end. This trip reminded me a lot of the one I took on the Cascais line in Lisbon, Portugal, though this one runs a little bit more frequently.
Alright, welcome to West Kirby. Let's do some battle.
West Kirby itself is a coastal town home to a lot of Tudor-style architecture, and a special shout-out must go to Marigolds for some of the best fish and chips I had anywhere in the country. This is not an ad. Now let's talk a little bit about the new trains on the network. The Class 777 is built on a Stadler Metro platform, which inherits a lot of features from Metro trains into a mainline vehicle. This is most notable in the interior, where in terms of performance, the trains accelerate at 1.1 meters per second squared, which is one of the highest for any mainline train in the UK. You can really feel them rocket in and out of stations. Trains are powered by Third Rail, a rarity on a UK mainline outside of the south, though there is a variant with a battery to allow extensions onto non-electrified lines. The top speed is 120 km per hour, not as fast as some suburban lines out of London, but still about what you'd expect for a service like this, especially combined with the fast acceleration. I've certainly seen slower suburban trains. On board you'll find mostly transverse seats, complete with power outlets but no tables. I also like the wooden finishes along the sides. Legroom is decent, but it has that problem of the support beam blocking some foot space that's common on many new UK trains. Overhead are luggage racks and coat hooks, and there are plenty of grab poles too, which I imagine comes in handy at peak hours. Bike storage is present, as is a wheelchair area with seats that fold up. Most encouragingly of all though, the trains have level boarding with a gap filler. There are also fully open gangways, though there's a small slope needed to get between each car. The most eye-catching feature is probably the digital wayfinding, which was a little bit buggy in my experience, but when it worked, it shows not only the next stations, but also an estimated arrival time, including at the end of the line. If I had one complaint about the trains, it would be an insufficient number of doors. There are only 6 across the entire 65-meter length of the train, which to be fair is a similar door spacing to what you'd find on Thameslink, but it could still be better. There are also no toilets aboard the trains, which I don't think is that big of an issue when you consider how compact the Merseyrail network is, but it's still not great. Much like Everton's former shirt sponsor, the elephant in the room is the City Line. This is not a Merseyrail service, rather it's the collective name given to suburban services out of Lime Street that have stops within Merseytravel's jurisdiction. Most of the services are operated by Northern Trains and TransPennine Express, with a few other operators like EMR and Transport for Wales. The designation as the City Line is definitely a little bit weird, but I guess it's there as some kind of indication that their service is relatively frequent, and that Merseytravel intends to invest in them at some point in the future. Whether or not that will happen, only time will tell. Merseyrail themselves manage all but one of the Northern and Wirral line stations, namely Chester. This leads to it having the highest amount of staff on a per kilometer basis of any mainline TOC in the UK. During my trip in November 2025, it cost me £6.40 to buy a day pass for unlimited rides on the Merseyrail network. Though looking at the Office of Rail and Road report, it seems like delays and passenger complaints have gone up recently, and on-time performance has consistently been trending down year on year. That's not great. Ridership still remains a strong suit though. The Northern and Wirral lines combined had 29.9 million riders last year, or about 80,000 a day. It's a little bit lower than I expected, but still respectable. Despite being 35% less than Manchester Metrolink's ridership, this accounts for a larger share of the region's population than Metrolink does for Greater Manchester's. I will say though, service frequency halves on Sundays, which is something I'm tired of seeing. There are no extensions currently under construction, but the system did just add a new stop at Headbolt Lane a couple years ago. It is hoped that a station on the site of the former St. James would open soon, not to be named Baltic Street, but while some funding has been secured, it seems like a low priority for Network Rail. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more small extensions, like the one to Headbolt Lane, start to get discussed soon, especially now with battery electric trains in service. It is theoretically possible to get to places like Wrexham and Runcorn on one charge, but again, nothing's been confirmed yet, and the jury's out on whether that's actually a good idea. It's fine as a stopgap or even a permanent solution on a short branch line, but on the Liverpool to Manchester corridor, for example, that is regularly used by TPX, you just wonder what has to be done to finally put up the wires. So that was Merseyrail and Liverpool as a whole. A tale of false dawns, but still an impressive network. In that sense, it once again reminds me of my beloved BART and the countless hauntologies that its dearest fans craft. The honour of being England's second city is tightly fought between Birmingham and Manchester, but I do wonder if Liverpool would have romped to that title had the full extent of Merseyrail and perhaps even the ill-fated Mersey tram been built. That said, what we have today is still worthy of praise, and I'm quite happy to say is England's best suburban railway outside of London, and one that I think deserves more global attention. I'd love to come back and check out more of the system, maybe even try to beat Nick Badley's speedrun record, but that's all for now, and just remember, you'll never ride alone. Thanks for joining me, Patrick.